Good afternoon, this is Joe Biondo with Inbound Logistics. We're here at MODEX2026 today with Ron Egan, SVP of North American Sales at Fortna. Ron, how are you?
I'm doing great. Day one of MODEX and we're ready to go.
Having fun, man, awesome. So we're just going to jump right into it. Yeah. What is the single biggest pain point your customers are bringing to you this year compared to 2 years ago?
Yeah, look, in this macroeconomic environment, the single biggest thing we hear is help us sweat our assets. It's about getting more out of their current buildings rather than we grow through only building greenfields. So all new complex challenges tend to be operational in nature. Some are technology-based, some are people-based, some are process-based.
So looking around the MODEX floor today, I know it's early in the show, but what is one thing that you see that would have been unthinkable even 5 years ago?
Yeah, look, it's an obvious answer, but the role that software is playing right now to drive flexibility, and we're seeing it outside of the major historical players in the space. So there's just a lot of momentum, obviously utilizing AI that we're seeing from companies like Jacoby Robotics, who we announced a partnership with this week.
Awesome. What's the, talking along the technology lines, what's the biggest mistake you see companies making when they start their digital transformation journeys?
Yeah, the one we see constantly is the desire to start with technology. So look at a project, look at a problem and say what technology is the best fit. The inverse of that is start with data, understand operations, understand pain points, then you go to software and understand how software drives that operation, and then you get to technology. And that tends to be the longest term solution that provides flexibility and avoids some of those pitfalls.
So Ron, your team is taking a major shift this year, moving from manual workflows to AI and robotic stability. Why is 2026 the year that robotics moved from a future concept to a survival requirement for retailers?
Look, I think there are at least 4 headwinds that retailers are facing right now. I mean, one is obviously labor availability, also quality of labor. It's a really challenging market. So putting off decisions is getting more difficult. The second would be the speed requirements from their end customers, right? Amazon started it, but customers expect things to turn very, very quickly. We're seeing a lot of margin pressure. Tariffs didn't help that. So the need to automate quickly is important. And then for those that are growing, it's just too difficult to do it in a manual environment. You've got to find ways to utilize the right level of automation to help fuel that growth. That's what we're seeing, and I'm sure we can come up with a list of 5 or 6 more.
This keeps on growing every day, right?
Absolutely.
So you have a proprietary distribution optimization framework. When you sit down with the brand, like a major omni-channel retailer, how do you decide which best fit technology? Oh my God, I messed up there. Which best fit technology, sorry. Whether it's Auto Store or Geek Plus.
Okay.
All right.
Going back in 3.
Going back.
2.
So Ron, you have a proprietary distribution optimization framework. When you sit down with a brand like a major omni-channel retailer, how do you decide which best fit technology, whether it's Auto Store or Geek Plus, actually makes the cut for their specific warehouse?
Yeah, it's a great question. And at Fortna, we don't start with the technology, like I mentioned earlier. We start with our data. Yep. And we really need to understand data, business requirements, business challenges. Once we understand that, we understand current operations, only then can we start to think about best fit technology based on their unique use case. Yep. Sometimes it absolutely is going to be Auto Store or Geek Plus or High. Other times there may be emerging technologies that are just a better fit, but we have to start with their data and understanding their operations before we can ever talk about technology.
That makes a lot of sense. So Fortna has been doing massive work in parcel and last mile delivery recently, with customer expectations for speed hitting an all-time high. How is your automation helping customers scale sortation centers without needing a massive new footprint?
It's a great question, and we have major parcel companies right now who are pushing really hard to do just that. I'd say what makes Fortna unique in the space, one is the experience that we have in particularly going into existing buildings like you referenced and maintaining operations as best we can through the process, retrofitting that building and coming out with a system that is not only modernized, but set for success for the next 15 to 20 years, and driving the type of rates they need to meet customer demand. So it's really that expertise going into a brownfield setting, retrofitting with modern sortation, conveyance, world-class controls, and driving a level of productivity that wouldn't have been possible prior.
So we often hear about labor shortages, but you're showing data that can lead to a 60% reduction in labor dependency. For a CEO watching this, is this about replacing people, or is it about making the existing workforce or existing team 4 times more productive?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, it's definitely both, right? So there is an opportunity with the right level of automation to have an impact on FTEs required. Given the labor environment, that's probably a helpful thing for a CEO.
Absolutely.
It's also about increasing the productivity of an FTE. Increasing the productivity of someone working in a warehouse, give them better visualization, give them more control over what they do every day, more predictability about what they do, and then ultimately systems and software platforms that provide flexibility will inherently make the workforce more productive. So we see both. We see the opportunity to bring down the amount of labor required in a building, but also it's really about just maximizing the productivity for each individual that works in the warehouse.